it's me, Miss Mary, coming in for a landing, coming in to just say hi and welcome to the tribe in the village. And just wanted to say I have a very special guest today, and we're going to be talking about parenting. And I thought we would take a detour away from cleaning and all of that stuff. So let's just, because why? We're doing life over here on this channel. Okay, so my guest name here is Mariam.
Hi.
Hi. And so Mariam is here today, and we are going to talk about parenting because Mariam is a mother as well as she's a stepmom. And so we're going to dive into that. And for those of you who don't know, she's my stepdaughter. I know. I know.
I mean, daughter-in-law.
She's my daughter-in-law. She's my daughter. How's that? She's my daughter. Okay. So anyway, we're just going to sit here and we're just going to chit chat and we're just going to talk. And if you find this video to be helpful, please share, like, and subscribe, and share it with someone that you know that this could help. Okay. All right, Mariam, welcome.
Hi,
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too.
Yeah. So anyway, we're just gonna chat because we're just two women doing life, right?
Yep.
And we're just gonna talk about life and how we got there and what we're doing, you know.
Okay.
So you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
So I am Mariam Orr. I am married to Mary's knee baby, her
Yes.
second to youngest son.
Yes.
And this is not my first marriage.
Uh-huh.
But it's by far my best marriage.
Okay. Love it. Love it. Same here, girl. Same here. My best marriage. Yeah. And so, Mariam, how did you feel? Because for those of you that don't know, you want to tell them how many kids you have? And
so I have 4 of my own, grown.
Yeah.
And then I have a bonus stepson.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And so how did you feel about, what was it that made you feel comfortable with dating again?
Oh, I wasn't very comfortable.
Okay.
Your son, Aaron, pursued me pretty relentlessly in a good way.
Yeah.
I kept pushing back and saying I wasn't ready, and he just kept standing in that space waiting for me to be ready. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't think I was ready.
Yeah. And so it can be so challenging when you have kids to even think that you want to put yourself back out there. You want to try again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We were very cautious. I let him know right away I wasn't ready for him to meet my children. We dated for about 2 years before I introduced him to my kids as a partner. He was around friend groups, but never did they ever see him in my home.
Right.
We didn't go to his home.
Right.
We kept it very separate, and he was extremely understanding about that because he had never introduced James, his son, to any woman he had ever dated. So I met James before my children met him, a little before, but we did take a lot of time to keep our relationship separate and know that we wanted to be in each other's lives before we involved our kids into our relationship.
You know what? That sounds like it was taken straight from the playbook of his dad. Because this is my second marriage, to those of you who don't know, and Aaron has a stepfather. So, and I had 4 children when my husband married me, and then we have 1 together. So we have his, hers, and ours. And we did the same thing, but it wasn't 2 years. We met each other around Valentine's Day, and then it was Thanksgiving before he came to my home, because we wanted to get to know each other before we brought the children on board. We wanted to make sure that this was a sure foundation and that we were interested, you know? Yeah. Because it can be so scary, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we never lived together before we married.
Yeah.
And I think that was the best thing we could have ever done.
Yeah.
And then we immediately moved into a new home so that there was no territorial issues with the kids, because they really felt like, this is my room, this is my stuff, this is my home, and you're coming into it.
Right.
I think it was really important for us to just start on a neutral base.
Right.
as husband and wife too,
right?
Because if he would have moved into my home, I would have felt a little territorial, and vice versa. So us all having to start fresh in a new space, that was the best thing we could have done.
I think that is perfect, because that's the way we did it too. We, Harvey bought the house, and then we moved in, because it wasn't that, this is my stuff and you got to clear out, make room in the closet for him. You know what I mean? And the kids saying, this is my room, and you move somebody into my room. I think that's just perfect. You know, if you can do that, that just works perfect, because it just sets you up for success.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's just certain things that you need to do.
Yeah.
Yep. So how was it blending the families? If you can talk on that.
It was good. There was definitely an economic discrepancy between the way that James lived his life with his mother and how my children were being raised by me. Again, James is an only child.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to raise one baby than it is to raise four.
Yeah.
His mom had remarried early on, so it was a two-parent household. Right. Pretty much all that James can remember. And then for my kids, it's always been kind of a single mom.
Right.
Horror area, neighborhood, less privileged.
Yes.
So I think there was a little bit of jealousy on my kids' part.
Okay.
But it was also almost like pride because of the struggle.
Yeah.
So there was, because they're both mixed.
Right.
They're both racially mixed. There was no racial headbutting. But as far as economic, there was some, like, he's a spoiled brat.
Yeah.
And so there was a little bit of that that I wasn't expecting. And it's like, he gets everything he wants. Right. Like blah, blah, blah. And so it also made disciplining a little bit more difficult because it was like, you don't discipline him the way that, you discipline us. But it's like, that's not my child yet. I can't be doing that. So there was a little bit of jealousy, I think.
So when it came to the discipline part, how would you handle that? Would you?
I would go behind closed doors and bring it to Aaron.
Okay.
Now I feel like after we're 8 years in at this point, and living together as a family for almost 4 years. Yeah. So now I'm finally starting to do my own discipline.
Okay.
But there's a lot of behind closed doors, and that is Aaron coming to me about my children, me coming to him.
Yeah.
Instead of there being any type of headbutting in front of them.
In front of them.
If we disagree with what we're doing as the parent, we pull each other aside and say, "Hey, I don't think that this is right," or somebody's doing this, and then we go and have that conversation with the child, our biological child, separately from the family.
Yeah.
So
see, that was good, because that's what we would do. We would the difference between you and I is that my kid's father wasn't in their life.
Yeah.
So there was nobody telling my kids, their father was not there to say, you don't have to listen to him. He's not your dad.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. You know what I mean? Where my kids, the buck stopped with Harvey.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But when it came to the discipline, we would always go, like you said, behind closed doors, discuss it, never ever let the kids see, because they will divide and conquer. So you have to, even as hard as it is, and I can realize that sometimes it's very, very hard to walk away and to find that time to get away and say, hey, let's talk about this. This isn't right. Or, and then the thing of it is that you got 2 points of view too about, should you be disciplined for that? Maybe, Harvey might feel like, Aaron should have been disciplined for that. And I might think, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't. So sometimes you run into that too.
A lot. Because you're going to be naturally defensive over your own.
Yes.
It's even if you know they're wrong. You don't want to hear a teacher saying something bad. You don't want to hear the other parent saying something bad.
Right.
You are so invested in protecting them.
Right.
That sometimes somebody on the outside, like the step parent, can see stuff that you can't see.
Right.
And you don't want to admit it. You just get defensive and you're like, no, and it causes... But then you got to step back and be like, you know what, you are right, And I think too, being a step parent when the other parent is involved, you're kind of like the second voice.
Yes.
And they're like, I'm already hearing that from my mom. Why would I want to hear it from you too?
Okay.
And so it's like, it's hard because you're echoing, even if you're on the same page, right? Even if they're not saying, oh, you don't have to listen to them. If they are saying you have to listen to them, they're like, I got 2 mamas telling me what to do, and I don't even want to listen to one mama. Why do I want to listen to 2? And so, but I think that is being on the same page with the other parent, the biological parent, being friends with them is the best thing that you can ever do. Because you know that you are in a united front. Right. You got each other's backs in both households. The kids can't be pulling the wool over your eyes. Right. Since James' mom and I have become friends, it makes her life easier. It makes my life easier. I'm still, one of my best friends is my children's, I had other stepchildren before in the past. Their mother is one of my closest friends to this day. And it is so important. It is so important. Because if the kids know that you're on the same page and that you love and support each other, even if they don't like it, they still feel safe and they still know that everybody's got their back.
That's so true. Yeah. And you know what I was thinking about when you was talking about, like, you don't want the teacher disciplining your kids. You don't want, and so it's hard when you get married or you bring this other person into the kids' lives, because you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about in terms of, like, I can remember I would tell my husband things about my family. Like I would say, oh, my aunt so-and-so and so-and-so did this. And then, now I told him that, right? But when let's just say, for instance, if I told him, oh, my cousin Johnny, he's a thief. We're just throwing something out here, guys. I don't have a cousin Johnny, and I don't know if he's a thief or not, but just for a scenario. Anyway, let's say if I had a cousin Johnny and I said, oh, my cousin Johnny, he's a thief. And I would tell my husband these things about my family, right? But then when we would be like maybe having a conversation or something, he was like, yeah, remember Johnny, you say he's a thief. And I'm like, don't you dare call my cousin a thief. And I'm like, and he said, I'm just repeating what you said about your family. So it's something about that nurturing part that we have such a hard time letting go. Yeah. You know what I mean? We don't want to see. Now, I told him that. So he's only repeating what I shared with him. But yet and still, just to have that other person say it. You know, like for me, it was so hard to watch Harvey discipline the kids. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, or just to say, oh, you're grounded. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I'm like, And sometimes I would step in behind closed doors and say, I don't think the punishment fits the crime. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sometimes I thought that, you know what I mean? So, but at the same time, I knew I had to trust him. Yeah. Because I trust him to provide for them. I trust him in that area. Yeah. So, and I had to love and trust that he had my kids back and that he was going to do what was right by them. You know what I'm saying? I had to trust that. And sometimes I think as women, we have a hard time doing that. We can trust him to give us the money to buy the tennis shoes and the clothes and get the school stuff ready. But when it comes to discipline, you can't trust him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you got to know and be involved in, you know what I mean? Because I know, like for me, when I married Harvey, I told him what type of kids I had. I say, you don't have to yell and scream and go all crazy with my kids. For the most part, they're very obedient kids. You know what I'm saying? Now, when they start going through adolescence and things change, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But for the most part, you can just talk to my kids. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to, you ain't got to come in here with no rod iron thinking you got to straighten the whole house out, because that was not necessary. Yeah. I did a lot of communicating with my kids and talking through my teeth and rolling my eyes and looking sideways at them and stuff. You know what I mean? Same. So, but just being able to communicate with them. Yeah. What type of character these kids are. You know what I'm saying? I should have, and I will confess, I probably should have communicated even more about the situation that we came out of. Had I told Harvey a little bit more about our situation, I think he would have been a little bit more sensitive to my kids, especially the older ones. Okay. Because Aaron and Tracy was babies. Yeah. And to this day, Harvey says, they were my babies. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas my 2 elder kids, they were older they were more defiant. They were old enough to talk back and old enough to say, you ain't my daddy and all that kind of stuff, you know. Whereas the little ones was just happy to have a male figure in the home.
Yeah.
And happy to have a dad.
Yeah, and family.
And family,
What a family looks like, what their friends, you know, families might look like, or what they've imagined their family to look like. I definitely got the most pushback from my oldest son, for sure. It was like, I don't ever want you to love again. I don't ever want you to date again.
Wow,
like, I pretty much want you to be alone for the rest of your life, because if you're alone, then the only people that matter in your lives are us.
Right.
And I don't want to share your love with anybody else.
Right.
But I think
and
that
he
also
shared that with you?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
When,
okay. That was
like,
good.
right after I introduced them to Aaron. And it was like, I don't support this.
Right.
You know, and it was a lot of pushback and a lot of anger for a long time. He really put a wall up with me of like, I think it was, he didn't trust my judgment.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was like, I'm not going to allow myself to get attached to somebody that you love if they're going to hurt you, or if we are going to have to leave again, or, you know, so there was a lot of resistance because he presents as like tough, but he's the most tenderhearted of all the kids.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, it just took a lot of very slow understanding, and he had to see the proof. Right. You know, he couldn't just take it for face value. It was like, oh, he's a nice guy. It's like, no, he's going to have to show me that he's never going to disrespect you. You know, it wasn't really concern about their own safety. I think it was concern about me.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I know that I had that same situation somewhat with my elder daughter, because she said, I couldn't trust you to make a good judgment as far as a man goes, because I had chosen bad before. So because I had chosen bad, then when I did, you know, introduce Harvey and stuff, and there was a lot of resistance, because she says, I can't trust that you can pick well for yourself.
Yeah, I think
you know what I mean?
I don't even think he could articulate it yet, but I know that's how he felt. You know, it's like, I'm not about to get attached to another family and another, you know, situation. If it's not going to work out. So,
it's a challenge, you know, guys. And the main thing is, you just got to hang in there. You got to do a lot of talking, a lot of communicating, a lot of understanding, a lot of prayer, you know, like, and trying to see the other person's side. You know, not being so defensive, but trying to understand,
saying, you know, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Like, that's been I think my biggest leap of growth has been being able to admit when I'm wrong. You know, when you're right, I didn't like show the right emotion or love or whatever, patience. Then it's like, my daughter pointed out to me yesterday in the car, Mom, you don't get road rage as bad as you used to.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, you're right. And I thought, and I said it out loud, well, I don't actually get rage as much as I used to.
Wow.
In general.
And so what do you think?
She was like, oh, you're right. It's that, I think it's having the right partner where you feel safe enough to be in touch with all your emotions. So that anger isn't protecting sadness. And you're not in fight or flight. You're not in survival mode, and you're able to just let your guard down and embrace all of those emotions. And then you get your true baseline. Like, what am I when I'm safe? What am I when I'm happy? What am I when I'm provided for? What am I when, you know, I don't have to worry about how I'm going to put the next meal on the table? Who is that person? And then when you can get in touch with her, then you realize, oh, this is the mother that I am. This is the partner that I am. When you feel safe, you're a completely different person.
I totally agree.
And my kids have said it. You know, I am a different mom, and I've always, I've, you know, ruled the house with an iron fist sometimes because I had to. But now, because you do put in those years of hard work when they're small, and they know where their boundary is. As they get a little older, you can kind of let off a little bit. And just, you know, they feel safe. You're safe. You can just be who you really are.
I know for me, I totally agree with everything that you said, because once Harvey came into our lives and I didn't have to be the mom, the dad, the protector, the defender. I had
Provider.
help, you know what I'm saying? But another thing that I kind of struggled with was when we first got married, trying to be a wife, trying to, make sure that I give my kids what they needed, um, trying to stay in touch with myself. Then I went to work. So I hadn't worked outside of the home before. I had before kids, but once I got married, I got a job, And so I was balancing work, balancing these kids, and balancing being a wife, trying to keep my marriage together and be a wife. And at some point, I just felt so overwhelmed because I was trying to make everybody happy, trying to be a good worker at work, trying to be a good wife at home, trying to be the best mom that I could be, at home. It at one point, I reached a breaking point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll never ever forget it. It was my husband. He was so grateful that I was willing to work because he didn't require me to work, and he said, "But if you want to work, just do 8 hours and come home, and I'll pick up the slack. I'll do the rest." And I can remember, and he said, "But the only thing I ask you is that you pull my coat if you think I'm doing too much," because he'll get in the trenches. He'll do 12 hours, 14 hours. He'll be out there just working. And so I remember one time he came home and I just had my bags at the door. Yeah. And he was like, what's wrong? I mean, it was like he worked afternoons and he came home like 3 a.m. and I had my bags at the door, and he was like, and I was like, I think we was like a year and a half, 2 years into the marriage. There was no type of abuse, none of that, guys, nothing going on. It was just me in overload. I was in overload, you know what I mean? And he said, "What's going on?" I said, I can't do it anymore. I'm out." And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, "I'm out. I just can't do it anymore, you know?" And I said, "Well, I'm gonna go get the kids and everything." I will never, ever forget it. So I go downstairs because it's like 3 a.m. I wake the kids up. "Come on, we're leaving." "Where are we going?" I said, "We're going back to Lansing." And they was like, "Is Harvey going?" And I'm like, "No." And they were like, "We ain't going. We ain't going." And so anyway, Harvey was looking at me like a deer in headlights. And I came back upstairs and the kids didn't want to go. And I'm just crying and I'm crying. And then finally I told him, I said, "Give me some money." So he said, "Oh, my wallet's right there and all the cards and stuff is right there." So I grabbed the wallet off the counter. And then I said, "Give me the car keys." And he didn't resist nothing I said. I think he was just trying to figure out, who is this person? Who is this? And finally I was like, "Weren't you going to just say no?" And he was like, "No, if you want to go, if you want to go, Mary, I'm not going to stop you from going." And so I just laid on the bed. I said, "Well, I'm tired. I'm just going to sleep. And once I get me some rest, I'm going to get up and I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of here." And I fell asleep, guys, and I must have slept about 8 to 10 hours. I kid you not. And when I got up, it was, I tell you, it was almost like, what happened? Whose suitcase is that? Well, I kid you not. It was like, he was like, "That's your suitcase." I go, "Yeah." He said, and I said, "Wow." He goes, "Mary, don't ever let it get to this point. We need to communicate what's going on."
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't even realize it. So stress can come in so many different forms. Or it can hit you so many different ways. Sometimes we're in such a go mode.
Yep.
We don't even realize it ourselves until finally you just run. And then finally, boom.
Yep.
It stops you dead in your tracks. And you're like, what is it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And from then on, we always went to breakfast on Saturday morning, even before this happened. And then we used to go and talk about the kids, talk about life, talk about finances, because you're combining his, hers, and ours together. So we would talk about that. Then we finally switched it and said, "Let's talk about each other." He said, "I need to make sure that we're still going east and that you didn't get off the train and you're going west and I'm going east.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we come together and make sure that we're still on the same train."
Yeah.
You know, because we've been so busy like working and taking care of the kids and, you know, and all this other things, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And somewhere in that, we lost each other.
Yeah.
As far as communicating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he had no idea that I was so stressed.
Yeah.
Because at the time I was trying to be
Superwoman.
Yeah. Yeah. And it took me down.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It took me
absolutely.
down. Yeah.
I've been there.
Have you been there?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of times where I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's done. Like I'm not doing this. And he's what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why are you pushing this away?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was letting some outside, you know, noise.
Yes.
In outside noise that was even in my own head.
Yeah.
You know, outside noise of past relationships, failures, whatever. Friends who aren't married.
Yeah.
Just people who don't understand your situation, you know, and being like, I don't want to get tied down again. I don't want to make a mistake again. And then like kind of trying to run away.
Yeah.
But then what are you left with?
Right.
You know, you're going to be that struggling single mom with all these kids because you're not leaving them behind. So they're coming with you.
Yeah, they sure is.
And it's a whole lot easier when you have help.
Right.
You know,
it sure is. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so happy. It was like once, I haven't felt like that since we've been married.
Yeah.
But it was before the marriage that I was terrified.
Yeah.
But we dated for so long before we married.
Yeah.
You know? And
so you guys have worked out a lot of
that.
A lot of the things. Yeah.
And then just working together, owning a business together.
Oh, yeah.
It gave us those Saturday mornings times 12, 14 hours a day. Because we had times where we had nothing going on.
Right.
It was either we were so busy we couldn't breathe, or we were so slow we didn't know anything. But what we did in those slow times is we sat down and we really got to know each other for real.
Ooh,
you know, and
when you had the business.
When we had the business, because instead of being at two separate jobs where we go at 8 a.m. or, you know, whatever, he was general managing. So he wasn't getting home till 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, our schedules were crazy. So we weren't really seeing each other a whole lot when we worked separately. Right. It was a few hours here and there, you know, and you're just trying to get stuff done. But when we worked together, it was like our marriage got put on like hyperspeed of like having to be around all the quirks all day long. Yeah. Having to worry about finances together on such a core level, having to see each other, the way each other works, and what we do when we're panicked at work, and what we do, you know, and you see all these sides of your partner that you might not ever see, or you might not see until you're retired. But we got to really build our marriage in those moments of hardship, and one of us would be breaking down. Wow. And the other one, we took turns, you know, so I can't do this anymore. And the other one would be standing there strong. And then we would exchange, you know. But we knew when the other one was breaking because we were seeing every second of it. So I think it really helped like give us years within just a short amount of time.
So for people who say like, oh, working together and then going home together, being together like that,
I think it's either going to show you that you love this person and you're compatible beyond what you ever knew, or it's going to show you can't stand the person.
Like, I want out of here.
You know? So I think a lot of you know, you see these late in life divorces where the kids grow up and it's just them alone for the first time since they had babies. And they figure out, I really don't like you. I really, the kids were a buffer, or the work was a buffer. And then they get divorced when they're in their 40s and their 50s because it's just them. And they haven't had the opportunity to know each other. And so I think, we got to really dig
know
in.
Each other.
There wasn't a honeymoon stage.
How do you know that he's one? And I said, because even if there's someone out there that can love me more, that can give me more, and I would even be more compatible with, I'm happy enough with what I have that I don't even care. I don't even care.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. And I picked wrong so many times. If I picked right one time, I'm sticking with it.
You sticking with it.